Oh, hey. I was just out here on the deck enjoying the little bit of shade and wind that we have until the sun kicks out over here. So let me get this thing done because otherwise I'm gonna burn up. Okay, it's me, Kendra T, the SLP. I want to talk today about representation and racism in speech therapy. The climate right now is one of extreme awareness and correction. And so a lot of companies are changing their logos, shows are pulling episodes, companies are looking at their policies and their hiring and human resourcing, all to address racism, bias, and discrimination. So I wanted to talk about those things as a speech pathologist for how they apply and things that we speech pathologists can do in the workplace in speech therapy to address those issues. So I have 3 tips to help you with doing your part in in speech therapy and in work. And really, I mean, anybody could use these 3 tips, OTs, PTs, any of the allied professionals. If you work with students and kids, I mean, these are really, if you work with people, these are really things that anybody could do. So, number 1, all right, representation. Representation matters. Kids need to see themselves in a variety of spaces, but most importantly, they need to see diversity. So as far as materials go, try to choose materials that are diverse. Try to make materials that have a diverse representation of different kids, not just white kids' faces and not just white and black kids' faces, but also Asian kids' faces and other features, indigenous people representations, Hispanic and Latin representations. Just try to have a diverse representation in your materials as much as you can. I read a lot of those old lady books to my students, and I do use the one that has the same author and illustrator like for the whole series. I use those books, but I also made an old lady because I wanted to get the kids something tangible to be able to feed. When I made the old lady, guess how I made her? I made her as a black old lady, mainly because I'm black. So I mean, why not? But also to give some diversity and representation. There are white old ladies and black old ladies. The kids really didn't even notice. It's just another thing for them to see, another input for them to get. You don't want to just choose materials based on your target students demos. Like, what you gonna do? Pull out the black photo cards when you're working with your black kids and the white ones with the whites? That would be missing the mark, as we say. So when you're choosing and making materials, be mindful of the diversity. And when you're writing goals and giving models, be mindful of dialectal features and characteristics that ASHA and other linguists all say are correct and valid and rule-based languages, okay? So when you're choosing materials, think about these things. Be mindful of the messaging that you send with the materials or with the goals and the models that you give to students. You want to send the message that not only what's considered standard American English is correct and white models are correct and valid, but you also want to send the message that all of your students' dialects are valid because they are correct and valid. When you choose pictures of all white kids or you correct dialectal features and things like that, is you send the message that, the way that you speak, the way that your parents speak in your neighborhood, your grandma, your mama speaks is wrong. Let me fix you, okay? That's the message you send when you correct dialectal features. Number 2, educate and expose yourself to a variety of cultures and experiences. Now, I, as a Black American, can really only speak best to Black American culture. But I'm gonna cover all cultures by saying expose and educate yourself to a variety of cultures. Now, specifically for Black American culture, here's some things you can do. Follow, look on Instagram and Facebook, follow and subscribe to activists, to speakers, to writers who are Black American and can give you first-person perspectives on the culture. Watch Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube University, as I call it, for some documentaries, film clips, movies about the history of racism and discrimination. Like, it's a long, dirty history, y'all, of racism and discrimination in this country. If you don't know about it, how do you not know about it? But if you don't know about it, educate yourself on it. Now, when I say educate, I mean, research. That sounds boring and daunting, but these are things that are necessary. So as far as learning about the culture, Black American culture, and what it is today, you can listen to podcasts and radio shows. So I think of The Breakfast Club, which is a nationally syndicated radio show, but they also have a podcast and YouTube channel. They do such a huge variety of interviews that it is a great lens into Black American culture. So they interview artists, musical artists, politicians, speakers, writers, activists, journalists. They interview a wide variety of people. So between the interviews, and then just the callers calling in, it's a great lens into Black American culture and the temperature of what it is now. But on the fun and light side, enjoy shows like Blackish, Grownish, Mixedish, because again, they are a great lens into Black American culture, but also you do get education on the history of Black American culture and racism in America in a very entertaining way. Their episode about Juneteenth had like a lovely video about what Juneteenth is. It was done in the style of that old video, I'm Just a Bill, with the little guy dancing, I'm just a bill, like a cartoon animation, but it told you what Juneteenth is. And that was done, I think, a couple of seasons ago. But yeah, shows like that, shows like A Different World, which is a show from the early 90s about a historically Black college and its students. It was a Bill Cosby show, The Cosby Show. These are, again, like A Different World hit on so many different social and political and racial and economical issues. Like, you could really learn a lot. It was a great show. All right. So talk to your friends. Check your friends if you need to. Check yourself if you need to before you wreck yourself. And then also support Black businesses and events by purchasing, donating, and attending. Because again, this is all about educating and exposing yourself to a culture that you may not be familiar with. And as we all know, the more you learn about things, the more comfortable you feel about them. Okay? And also CEUs, we all gotta get these CEUs. Look for CEUs about culturally and linguistically diverse populations so that you can learn about the issues of race and ethnicity in terms of communication disorders and speech and language and social skills, and bring those two together at work. Number 3, this is the third thing that you can do as doing your part to in the fight for racism and discrimination and bias in the workplace and speech therapy. You can advocate for your students to feel empowered and accepted to use their dialect. Advocate for them on behalf with parents and school staff or other agencies to let them know that, hey, I'm not here to correct them on the dialect they're speaking. They're speaking a dialect of American English. All languages have multiple dialects, and none of them are wrong or incorrect. The thing that you are working on, at least this is what I tell my students and my parents, I'm not correcting dialects, I'm not correcting things that are considered grammatical as far as dialectal rules. But what I am doing is I am teaching my students that there are multiple ways to speak, and sometimes you have to switch up the way that you say something so that someone understands you better, so that your message is more clear. I want you to be able to speak, and for me the correct way to speak is clearly, so that your message is understood. All right, so a dialect is not a disorder. We know that, but advocate for other people that it's not. Learn the rules of the dialect. Check your test for norms and dialectal variations for scoring, because that's a tool. That's a tool to say if a kid has a language disorder or not based on the dialect. So you want to look at those tests and to make sure that they do have some accounting for variations in different dialects. So those are my three main tips. In conclusion, being protected from the truth and the cruel, brutal truth and history of racism is a white privilege. We talk about white privilege a lot. I mean, you've seen it through your Googles. But we as Black people learn about the cruel, brutal truth of racism early. We don't have a choice. And just imagine how when you learn about things that you have no control over, that will affect your future, how it would shape your view of the future. It can shape it very negatively. And also affect your hope for life in the future that you could have if you think that, if you learn early that no matter what I do, no matter who I am, somebody could harm me, kill me, or my family not employ me, or take all of these heinous actions against me simply because of the color of my skin. It's crazy. It's crazy that we're still talking about this. I thought of a little metaphor for racism as grits. Grits, the porridgey type of dish that people eat. Here in the South, it's everywhere. Up in Detroit and the Midwest where I'm from, you have to go to a soul food place for breakfast to maybe get grits or make them at home. But here in the South, you can get them at all the restaurants for breakfast. Shrimp and grits. Anyway, grits. So grits, you put these grains in water and you cook them and you stir them, and they simmer and they start to bubble up. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And they start to boil, and when they get too hot and the pressure is too much within the grits in the pot, they will explode. And when they explode, it's messy, it's painful if it lands on you, and it needs to be addressed right away. That's racism, y'all. Okay? These are things that you can do in the workplace and in life in general to do your part in this never-ending but needs to end very soon, because why are we still doing this? It's an entire fight for racism, discrimination, and anti-biasness. Justice for Breonna Taylor, Black Lives Matter, and we all need allies. Thanks, y'all.